Well, I guess if I'm gonna do this, I gotta go back to the beginning. I'm from Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. Growing up, I did things a lot differently than most. I went to a different school than most, a private school with a bunch of people who were in the arts. I went to school with some friends who are still friends to this day who train for the Olympics every year, swimmers, and I have a friend who does something they call the skeleton, which is face first bobsledding. I was in a band. My dream was to be in a band full time, to play guitar, sing, write songs, and travel and play those songs to people and make a living. And that was my dream. And for a solid 5-6 years of my life, that was reality. In a way, I was in a pop punk band called At Cliff's End, almost 6 months out of the year. At one point, it was 6 months out of the year. We were kids. Started when I was 15 playing in bands, started touring full time with part-time jobs to save up to get to those tours at the age of 18. The rest of the members in my band were 16 and 17 years old. And all of a sudden, one day, just like Forrest Gump says, you know, Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump says, and then one day, you know, he always prefaces that. And then one day in Detroit, Michigan, it was all over. My band was over. I tried other bands, I tried other musical adventures, I tried going to school to be a graphic designer, and quickly realized that it wasn't for me and that I needed to get back into doing something creative, something performing, whether it be another band or whether it be another adventure, another endeavor in the performance world. And I remember on those tours, everyone would always talk to me about, what would you do if this was over tomorrow? And I always joked and said, I'd probably go back to school just so I could apply to work at the Disney College program, because if you're gonna work for Disney, that's like the easiest way to really get in. And they would always laugh like, really, you do that? I'm like, yeah, of course, I love Disney. And a lot of people in those bands knew that I loved Disney. We would talk about Disney history stuff. My band would go to Disney World on those tours, you know, either from friends and others who would give us free tickets, you know, in exchange for something from the band. Disney was always in my life from day one. I did it. I went to school. I applied for the Disney College program. My first semester in school, college, I got accepted on October 1st. 2012, and October 1st stood out to me because that's the grand opening day of Walt Disney World. So it was almost like, in a weird way, I saw it as a you should do this sign. So I ran away from home and joined the circus twice. I ran away from home and joined the circus with my pop punk band. At Cliff's End was our name, by the way. We were on Spotify and other streaming services if you want to check that out. And then I ran away from home and joined the circus when my band broke up, kind of as a way to escape the reality that my life was different and was never going to be the same. And that's the God honest truth. Ever since I did that, my life hasn't been the same, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Welcome to the World of Micah, and welcome to a documentary, I should say. I was a tour guide at the Great Movie Ride. It was my favorite attraction ever, and it was a wild time. And today, we're going back, and we're going to talk about it. Now, let's take a closer look. And yes, you can't do a tribute to working at Walt Disney World without visiting Walt Disney World, but we're not visiting Walt Disney World just yet. There's a few stops we must take before we get to the park. So the way the Disney College program works is you basically apply. You have to have a certain GPA. You have to have certain things with your school that you could, you know, actually go and do this. Some people work during their college program only, and they take a semester off school and work for Disney, and it goes as an internship, credit for school and things. Some people actually stay in classes, online classes, and work while they were there. I chose to just work, and I'm glad I did, because it was a lot of work. And the college program has changed, you know, dramatically since back in 2013 when I did my program. I was going to be here from January to August of 2013. Now, back in the day, Disney had several different places that you could stay in. You had Vista Way, which was the oldest of the college program buildings that were current. You had Chatham Square, which is where I stayed, and a few others. And straight ahead, heading towards the International Airport from Walt Disney World, is where those buildings are still, but they are now private residence. They were bought out and changed into apartments a couple of years ago. But in a way, when I lived there, I was like 8 minutes from Epcot, 10 minutes from Disney's Hollywood Studios, and I really didn't see anything other than the Nickelodeon Hotel, you know, on the way to work. You were kind of like living in a bubble. You would pass by the Marriott, and you would also pass by the former Nickelodeon Hotel. There it is right there, World Gateway. And we're gonna go visit where I used to stay. And it all used to look like this, but now it looks like that. I remember when this was almost orange groves as far as the eye could see. This is the way I would drive back home after a shift. It looks kind of the same right around here. To the right is Partners, a federal credit union that is a Disney owned, I believe. Most cast members back in the day had a account there. And on the left over here, in a little place called Little Lake Bryan, is where the college program used to be. No longer is there. This is our exit right here into Little Lake Bryan. Little Lake Bryan is off of International Drive, by the way. International Drive is huge. Kind of reminds me of Celebration over here. Definitely had a Disney vibe back in the day. So here we are, Chatham Square. It's still called Chatham Square. Wow. As you can see, it says now leasing. And right over there, that's where the bus would pick you up if you were a cast member and take you to work. Straight ahead was the security. You had to check in there every time you went in. This is the buildings here. I lived on the other side though. And there's definitely some kind of an event happening up here. They have a recreation place for cast members up here. Yeah, see, straight ahead is Mickey's Retreat. But yeah, it's a place for cast members. You can go and canoe and swim, and they have soccer fields and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. It's an old wooden sign right there, actually. But we're not going in there. Okay, it's open. I'm in. I have not been here since 2013. This is insane. The sign is still the same. Chatham Manor. Yep. Loved it. I remember I took a right. I'm gonna see if I can remember. I have a picture of my building. I'm gonna see if I can remember this. I lived in apartment 3103 with 3 other gentlemen. That's right. I was like 22, 23 years old, I believe, when I did the college program, and I had a roommate inside the same room. We had twin beds, 2 twin beds. It's a little tight when you're doing that college program, but we had opposite schedules. He was a chef, so he was late night, early morning, and I was regular, you know, early morning shifts. So I kind of had the room to myself, but I just remembered. This was it right here. Building 3, 3103. And this is 3101 to 3304. Yep. 3103. That's where I lived. And I'm leaving this place for the first time since 2013. I can't believe we did it. Pretty awesome. Now, if you go out here, take a right, I'm gonna have to park over here on the side of the road because there's something I must show you. If you walk over here, you can see where it says Hearst, but it used to say Patterson Court. That's from the college program right there. Also, this is the original name and sign here, Chatham Square. And along this sidewalk here, there's something pretty incredible, and I must show it in the video. Now, right over my shoulder, that is Patterson. That was another Disney College Program building that you could stay in, and that's where they had our graduation ceremony at the end of our program. I got to wear a hat, not a gown, but a cap, and I got a diploma, a certificate saying I completed my program, and I got a photo with Mickey and Minnie. It was pretty cool. What I'm about to show you is pretty cool. It's in cement permanently, some Disney history. Right here. The Goofy signature. When they were doing this cement for the Disney College program, Goofy himself decided to put his signature here. And it's been here forever, as far as I know, since this place was built. And it's still here in 2024. Right there's the entrance to Purse was Patterson, and this is Chatham. And there's Goofy's signature right there. There was no way I was gonna come out here and not show that. But let's hop back in the vehicle and let's continue our journey of my story of working at the Great Movie Ride. So I drove down from Mississippi, drove in my own vehicle. Most people didn't have a vehicle on their college program. But I did some questioning before I came down and actually talked to my recruiter on the phone, like, should I bring my car? Because it said you guys have transportation. And she was like, if you can drive, because I'm glad I did, because she said, you know, on your off days, you can go places, you drive yourself to work. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I am gonna be a pass holder at Universal. I became a pass holder for 6 months while I did the college program. And then when I moved back to Florida, obviously I became a pass holder at Universal, but I became a pass holder for 6 months at Universal while I was here doing my program, because I was going to that park. Are you kidding me? So I drove down, got here wee early in the morning, and they gave me all of my information about where I was going to be staying. You get to pick which apartment you wanted to stay in, and Chatham Square just sounded really cool to me. I don't know why, but that's where I stayed, right there. And then I went to a casting meeting where they basically gave me my first few days of work information, right? They gave me where I was gonna be, information on what costume I should get, and it didn't say anything. It just said, report to Disney Hollywood Studios for an orientation. Okay. What does that mean? My other roommates are like, where are you working? I said, it says Hollywood Studios, but it doesn't say anything. It just says attractions. And I said, I did put in for the Great Movie Ride. I did say that in my interview that I really wanted to work at the Great Movie Ride. It was my favorite attraction. It was the reason I got into my love for Disney as a small child. It made me want to go and do research and find out more about this crazy place called Walt Disney World. And I was very nervous. I will not lie or sugarcoat that. I was very nervous. So I had an orientation at like 4 a.m. at the Disney Hollywood Studios. So I packed up my stuff in my car. I drove there early that morning, got in the parking lot, saw a group of people, talked to them, and they said, yeah, we're here for orientation. We're gonna find out everything today. They're gonna give us our work location. We're gonna go and try on our costumes. We're gonna do all kinds of stuff. And I was like, it's on. So you're gonna come with me on my exact morning route that I took that morning to get to work. This was my very first time figuring this out. And so I was like, okay, we're going to Hollywood Studios. I started driving down here. I'm not exaggerating on this. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to go this way. I'll go to Disney Springs if I go that way. So I popped a U-turn. By the way, on the right here, this used to be for the international college program students. And I drove back. This was so early in the morning. I was so scared. I was so nervous that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already making a mistake. I drove the wrong way. In reality, it doesn't matter. Once you get on Disney property, you can get anywhere you need to. It just sometimes helps if you drive in the right spot. You can get there faster if you drive it on the right area of the park. I remember exactly what I did. It's all coming back to me now, just like the song. I drove up here, and at this stop sign, I was like, okay, we're gonna take a left. And I just kind of stopped for a second and kind of had a slap myself moment, like, get it together, dude. It's okay. You're here. You got hired. The hard part's done. Now you're just gonna find out when the fun starts. So here I was, driving in the middle of the night because I had to get there early. It was a 4 a.m. call and I was nervous, so I left at like 2:30. And this was my route. And I remember my phone being plugged in to the car, and streaming back then was kind of limited, 2013. I mean, you had Spotify, you had things like that, but it wasn't like it is today. And I, being the the weirdo I am, legit went on YouTube, typed in the Great Movie Ride, and turned on a video of someone who had a ride through with all the music and everything. And I listened to that on my way to the orientation. When I tell you I was speaking things into reality, in my mind, I had already started working at the Great Movie Ride. You couldn't tell me any different. I remember driving in this archway and just thinking, man, what am I gonna do? I'm so far in now. And I got out of my car and I was here in the parking lot of the Disney-MGM studios where I was going to work. And where I was gonna work had yet to be told to me. But it was worth it because I was told by someone who I remembered as a kid, who is a gangster on the Great Movie Ride. You know what's wild, Bo? I don't even remember talking to you that morning. I was so distraught and so like worried about what they were gonna tell me, you know? But I'm glad we became friends, Bo. I'm really glad we became friends. Cheers. Cheers to our friendship, Bo. But I knew one thing when I got in this park, I had done it. I had become a cast member and I was gonna work here. My favorite place in the entire world, Hollywoodland. But now let's venture over to the spot where I was told where I was gonna work. They had us over here. It was the animation building at the time, the magic of Disney animation. And right over here is where I was told. They had us gathering around here in this courtyard, right here. A bunch of people standing around with papers. They would walk up and ask you what your name was, your last name. And he told me right here in front of this thing, you're going to be working at the Great Movie Ride. No way was I gonna work here. It literally was like winning the lottery. I remember almost like tearing up, and I told him, I remember you as a gangster from when I was a child and I would visit this place and I would ride this ride over and over and over. And that was that. We went on a tour of this place. They showed us, you know, a lot of the secrets and what makes this place work. And then we were told that we were gonna have our first day of work in 24 hours. So we had like basically a day of rest, and then we started to work. And this was my home. I was a tour guide, a movie rider. And they have a saying here, once a movie rider, always a movie rider. And see these handprints here on the ground. When I was a movie rider, when you passed your assessment, which means they make you give them a tour on the vehicle, you show them pretty much everything that you were taught, and they sign you off saying, you're safe, you're good to operate this attraction. They took you backstage, they took you into this hall of handprints, and there were handprints there for forever. And you got to take your hand, dip it in the paint, place it on the wall and sign it. And I did that. And there's picture, photograph, proof of me doing that. Now the Great Movie Ride was 22 minutes. It was a long script. Some 60 odd pages, I think. Kind of hard to remember. But I was taught everything. I learned the script. I learned how to operate the vehicle. I learned the ins and outs of this place. All the secret passage doors. What was real, what was fake. How they built this entire building. How they used the same blueprint from Grauman's in Hollywood. And I have a few funny stories to tell. So celebrities come to Walt Disney World all the time. They're usually with a private tour guide, depending on the popularity of the celebrity at the time. And one day I got a call from my manager saying we had a high profile coming to the Great Movie Ride. I was to meet them outside and backdoor them into the attraction where no one could see, and it was going to be seamless, and we had to do it. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, who in the heck do we have here? It's got to be someone like Johnny Depp or something. Well, the way we would backdoor guests is right down here into this door. If you went to this door, you were on the bottom of the floor of the main theater where the screen was, and that took you into the backside of the attraction there, another secret area. But this is where anyone who was anyone would get, you know, ushered into the attraction. And so I'm standing here, and this tall, strong-looking gentleman approaches me. And he looks at me and says, "We're the VIP. We have a party of 5. And I said, "Right this way. Is everyone here?" And he said, "They're on their way." I said, "Perfect." No less than 2 seconds later, here comes a family that walked up to me, and I was looking in the faces of all of them, and it all kind of came together, especially when I saw the mother and then a short blonde girl who came up to me and said, "We're ready to ride," with the accent, ride. And I looked down, and my gosh, it was none other than Honey Boo Boo. But I did get to see my fair share of celebrities here. Johnny Galecki from Roseanne and Big Bang Theory was here. I got to see Charles Fleischer, who was Roger Rabbit. That's right, and no one knew who he was. Afterwards, I did approach him and said, "Hey, we appreciate your work here, and Roger's in good hands." At one point, this place literally felt like my home, and I felt like I knew everything about it, inside and out.
Okay, looking at the courtyard, there used to be a vehicle out here that kind of looked like the gangster vehicle. Now, as we enter into the theater, I'm going to show you guys as much as I can really remember. This queue is really spectacular. There are a lot of things you have to just kind of take for, you know, what they are, the ambiance, the lighting. They really did try and capture that old Hollywood style. There's something always, you know, around here. What I'm pointing at right there is a closet. That's actually a closet. There are brooms behind there and a dustpan. Just like in a real theater, you don't really want the audience to see, you know, things like brooms, so you hide them cleverly. Right behind this door here, if you would go through that door, you would be on the back side of the facade. The attraction isn't actually behind the facade. It's actually in a soundstage. Now, what we're looking at right here is what used to be the main theater. If you were looking straight ahead, you would have seen the screen that had all the movie trailers and everything. Now it's changed, but they have added quite a few of hidden Mickeys in this room. This is the old theater. So imagine like Mary Poppins, Aliens, you know, all the old classic movie trailers. And then you enter into this room now, which is still a part of that same theater. And you enter into the old Great Movie Ride dock. Now, this is the way you enter now. You go through this door, and then as it turns, you'll see from this door here I'm pointing at, the reason I'm talking over a voiceover is because it was so loud you guys could not hear me. By the way, this is what I looked like on my first day at the job at the Great Movie Ride. Now, here we are on the vehicle, and I'm going to try and explain the ride to you. Now, imagine us taking off. We are heading towards the marquee that was all lit up in the Great Movie Ride right there. And to the right and left were all the houses and landmarks of the Hollywood Hills, including Charlie Chaplin's house. There was a hidden Minnie right up there in 1928. That's a nice nod to Mickey Mouse. But we are turning the corner. Straight ahead would have been the Busby Berkeley Girls, part of Footlight Parade and all the old musicals. To the left over here would have been Gene Kelly singing in the rain. And by the way, did you know that Gene Kelly had a fever while he did this scene? Right when you pass Gene Kelly, to the right where we're looking now, where Mickey and Minnie are, that's where Mary Poppins and Bert would have been singing Chim Chim Cheree. Now, after Mary Poppins, obviously we head into the gangster scene. This is where it can kind of get a little tricky. But here we are going through Mary Poppins, and then we were pulling into where James Cagney would be on the right. Now, we are currently inside the gangster area. All of this would have been the gangster scene, and Then you would have continued on. This would have been Western right through here. John Wayne, the whole Western scene in here, gone through the red light right there. John Wayne would have been over there. To the right would have been Clint Eastwood. And they put a little nod to the Great Movie Ride on this poster. It says the Great Moving Ride. It's a nice little nod to the attraction. But we are technically in Western scene, even though when you go into the gangster scene, that's Western now. Okay, it's getting confusing. Here's a tornado that has Mickey and Minnie and Pluto in it. Now we are finishing up with the Western scene. Where we are heading right now is Alien. This would have been the whole like Nostromo scene right here. Right there is where we would have exited from Western, and all of this that we are looking at right now would have been Nostromo. And they had the alien up in the ceiling. They had the alien on the right-hand side here. This would have been all Alien, and then we would have made our way out of Alien. This is always my favorite like scene right up here. But as we go through this area, just imagining us going into Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is where that whole scene would have taken place with Anubis. Then you get on your vehicle, you go in through what was Mummy, and then from Mummy we have Tarzan here. This would have been Tarzan and everything, and then Casablanca. You have Casablanca scene, all that would have been kind of around in this area if I had to guess. I'm not sure exactly what they, changed this over. Then you head into an area that kind of looks like the old gangster scene. I think they did that as a nod. This would have been the Fantasia room into the land of Oz. Now, Oz, we're kind of turned around in this whole area, but just imagine this whole building here being Oz. Okay, so you're wrapping everything up. Oh no, we're heading into this. I know what's going to happen, but even doing this voiceover, and I live to tell the tale, this always makes me like, come on, Mickey, just pull it. There you go. Now we can breathe. Now, where were we? Oh yeah, Oz. Let's get back on track. Turning around, here we are in Oz. Now, right there is, I believe, where Dorothy and all that happened. And then as we go to the left here, now we are entering into the screen theater for the finale. Right there where I'm pointing, that's where they would have shown the finale scene with all the different movies. Good Morning Vietnam! That whole thing would have been taking place in here. Still a great use of the room. I do miss finale. It just felt so awesome, especially at the very end with the Star Wars theme. It was just, I don't know. There was something special about that finale room. And as you turn around here, back there, there would have been 2 trams in this room. Now, right now, we are behind the screen from what was the finale ride. So imagine us going through the screen, just like at the very end when you saw Star Wars. And now we're in the backstage looking area, wrapping up our tour of the Great Movie Ride. And you're literally exiting back on the platform, just like you started the ride.
And just like on the Great Movie Ride, the music swells here as you get off as well. But that was a lot of fun. You see on the Great Movie Ride, the platform here would have been extended, and this is all open with the Great Movie Ride. You could see everything, like it was all exposed back in the day. It was one big platform. Even though we don't have the Great Movie Ride anymore, I think Walt would be proud of Mickey and the train. See, this was all open, and you could see the platform from here. And then the exit is the same. It's the same exit. So when you're looking at this is just the facade and the queue. The actual attraction is here. In the soundstage, it goes all the way back. See how it's going further back behind the ABC commissary here? We're gonna follow it all the way around. Straight ahead is what's left of the former streets of America. If you zoom in, right back there, that is the Great Movie Ride soundstage. Now Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, but that's the soundstage right there. Right through the trees there, here in Batu, you can see a little bit of that soundstage. They've always been able to hide it so well. And before this was Star Wars, it didn't really matter if you saw that facade, right over there. Hey, look at that. They're actually filming here today at the park. As you can see the backside of the Great Movie Ride here, the Chinese Theater. The attraction's not in the front entrance. It goes this way, and that is the attraction right there. That's the sound stage and everything. You remember that door I was showing you in the queue? I said if you went out, you would go out the back side. That door is like right over there. And that's where the ride actually kind of starts, right here. And it goes on down. And it continues on the other side of this building. As you can see behind the brick, the sound stage area, that encompasses that once housed, still does house the attraction, but Great Movie Ride. And the Edna Mode experience here cuts in a little bit to that, but you can see the soundstage continuing as you walk back here. And then it cuts this way, and we're back to the other side of that Streets of America area. Now here's a really cool story that I remember and I will treasure forever. I was working here one evening and I was standing out front at the greeter location. And I was standing right over here. And this lady approached me, a little older, and a much older lady with her approached me and they said, "Excuse me, do you have any photographs or are there any tributes to a David Tomlinson?" And that name stuck in my head immediately, and I was like Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins? And they looked at me and they were like, "Yeah, he was my granddad." So I met David Tomlinson's granddaughter, and I explained to her there was nothing here on property, not even his handprints or anything. And the only thing I could think of was in the preview for the Great Movie Ride, they had this scene of him talking to Mary in the Banks house in the trailer. So I was like, if you ride the ride, you'll see the trailer. He's featured in that on the big screen, and they have an animatronic of Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. So they did ride the ride, and they thanked me for that, and I could not tell them anywhere else on property that would have anything for him, but I did get to meet Mr. Banks's granddaughter. And even though we don't have Julie Andrews' signature here, we do have Dick Van Dyke. We did tell them about that. Should have Julie Andrews right there, Mr. Banks right there. But I worked here during my college program. I had a lot of good times, a lot of weird times. It does become your home. It does become a part of you. It got to the point where I became obsessed with where I was working. I started watching a lot of behind the scenes stuff of them creating the movie ride. And I even took it a little step further. And at night, when I would go home, I sometimes would pop on a different film that we featured inside the Great Movie Ride. I didn't watch every single film that was featured, but I got through quite a few. And I would sit down at dinner and I would watch classic films that we had in the ride, just because I wanted to become more familiar, you know, with this attraction. It was such a great time working at the Great Movie Ride. I'm so thankful to be a part of the legacy, you know, the history inside that building. And they do say once a movie rider, always a movie rider. I'm still friends with people who worked at the movie ride with me. Still see people all the time that worked, you know, at the Great Movie Ride. What an incredible yet simple concept of just taking a relaxing ride into the movies. And that was it. I no longer work for the Great Movie Ride. I no longer work for the Walt Disney Company. But I did. And I got to work at my favorite place where they had all kinds of movie props. And they filmed here. They did all kinds of stuff that made me fall in love with theme parks. And the weird thing is, I only have a few photographs of me actually working at the Great Movie Ride. I only have one video, a short snippet of me working at the Great Movie Ride. I don't know why I never asked someone to hop aboard my vehicle and film it for me just to have. That's not the way we thought back then. But I do have a video, and I'm gonna put it in here.
First, let's visit those great Hollywood musicals. Starting in 1933 with Busby Berkeley's extravaganza, Footlight Parade, starring James Cagney, Ruby Keeler, and Dick Powell. In 1952, Gene Kelly was Singing in the Rain with Debbie Reynolds and Donald O'Connor. Did you know Gene Kelly co-directed this movie?
Actually, I did.
Can anyone tell me what movie this is?
Sound of Music.
That's right, it's Walt Disney's Academy Award-winning film from 1964, Mary Poppins, starring Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. Julie Andrews won an Oscar for her portrayal as the nanny, who is practically perfect in every way.
Stand up good.
Hold on to those wallets and purses, folks. This doesn't look like a very good neighborhood. In fact, it looks a lot like the underworld, the scene of such classic gangster films as The Public Enemy, starring one of my favorite tough guys, James Cagney. The working title for this film was Beer and Blood, and in the United Kingdom it was known as Enemies of the Public. In one famous scene, Cagney shoves a grapefruit in May Clark's face. She can never look at breakfast in the same way again. These guys can turn anything into a weapon. Shut up. Someone like it? Sorry, he's got a point. I hate when people talk during the movie.
Don't you just honk the horn so everybody knows when you're... Shut up, Aquarius.
What is this, Joyce? What's up, Clint? How you doing?
Can anyone tell me the one movie Clint Eastwood and John Wayne made together?
The Searchers Part 3.
The Great Movie Ride. That's right, the two have never made a film together until now.
Partial to trouble.
Good film.
Fixing to get myself shot.
Mr. Eastwood asks you to refrain from flash photography, please. The Duke and Clint have made some of the greatest westerns of all time. The Searchers, The Good, the Bad... Someone's robbing a bank. Not on my watch, Pilgrim. Sit tight, folks. I'll be right back.
Hold it right there, hombre. Reach for the sky. You're under arrest. Huh? Do it, woman. Nothing to it. Nobody's sticking my dick in the noose. Tiny faces.
You're in my gang now, partners. Time to saddle up and ride. Giddy up. Get your back to the hideout.
And every time I walk into this park, I see in the distance the Chinese theater, and I'm reminded, oh yeah, you did it. People always ask me, sometimes they ask me, would you do it again? And I'd say, oh yeah, in a heartbeat. That was some of the greatest times of my life. Sometimes after work, I would walk right down here on Sunset Boulevard, and I would walk over here to the Hollywood Hills and watch Fantasmic, because it was my favorite nighttime show here. What a way to end the day. Bo, you tell them, if there's something you guys want to ever do, go for it. Even if it's just once. If there's an experience or there's something that you want to do, a dream, even if you get to just do it one time, try it out. Right, Bo? Because I never thought I would ever get to work for the mouse. And I did. I have been wanting to do this episode for quite some time. I'm glad I did it. Glad everything worked out today and I got to show you pretty much everything. Walt Disney Company was a great company to work for. Super nice. And it got me where I wanted to be later in life. So thank you, Walt Disney World. Thank you, Disney College Program. And thank you, Great Movie Ride. And thank you to everyone who watches my videos, everyone who supports me in this weird, wild thing called YouTube. But I will see you guys on the next adventure. It's almost the 35th anniversary of the Disney-MGM studios. Once a movie writer, always a movie writer. See you on the next episode. Until then, stay weird. Goodbye.